I am Austin Salvador, together with my groupmates Alessandra Dalabahan, April Joy Pingaping, Narceline Antero, Rachel Sectel, Alvin Lord Puyao, Vince Dulaycan, Jenzel Taras, and Charles Zel Paladino. We are going to talk about the optical properties of fibers used in Cordilleran attires. When it comes to fibers, numerous researchers show that they are the most prevalent type of trace evidence in forensic science today. They show up in around 25% of cases involving trace evidence, even while there has been much study on the best ways to describe and compare evidence, or compare fibers rather. Relatively little work has been dedicated to figure out the importance of fiber evidence in the Cordilleran setting. For that reason, we are carrying out research to come up with the optical properties of fibers which are used in the Cordilleran attire, including a database for this fiber to assist in criminal investigations.
According to our interview with Police Lieutenant Colonel Biadang, trace evidence is an essential part of the investigation. However, when a crime occurs, some investigators just focus on the tangible evidence that is immediately visible near the crime site. They therefore only depend on such proofs. An undated study of the New Jersey State Police lends credence to this. They haven't been able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a fiber detected on a victim or at a crime scene could only have come from an item linked to a suspect because of how widely fibers are used. They consider fibers to be less valuable as a result. We chose fibers as a focus of our study due to the fact that it is widely found around the crime scene as trace evidence. By examining their optical characteristics, we hope to aid criminal investigations that use fibers from Cordilleran clothing as evidence. Our research aims to shed light on how small amounts of trace evidence can add up to a case as corroborative evidence in the criminal justice system.
A recent study from 2021 by Class J et al. Focuses on TraceBase, a database designed for forensic trace analysis. The Cordilleran Fabrics database could be developed using the TraceBase structure as a starting point or as a basis. When it comes to the fabrics and textiles of the Cordillera, the information from this study can also be utilized as a benchmark but for comparison.
The effective polarized light microscope approach for studying fibers is another significant paper made by Refner et al. This study describes efficient methods beginning with the correct sample preparation, how fibers should be mounted on a glass slide, and how they should be lighted with linear polarized light. Additionally, the color illumination system and conventional alignment of the PLM's optical components, which are essential for achieving repeatable imaging of the fiber, were included. Since PLM, the tool we'll use to examine the characteristics of Cordilleran fiber, is what we'll use as it is easily available and accessible in our school, this study will serve as our model for carrying out our research. The experimental precision of the optical qualities we plan to measure will be determined by this procedure.
Overall, the main goal of our study is to identify the optical properties of the fibers used in Cordilleran fabrics and to form a database out of the information gathered.
During our search for our review of related literature, we discovered that there was a lack of literature focusing on trace evidence in the Philippines. Although the Regional Crime Lab of the Cordillera Administrative Region has its own trace evidence division, their laboratories are rarely equipped and there is a lack of experts in the trace evidence section. Moreover, from the interview we've conducted with Police Lieutenant Colonel Biadang, the head of the trace evidence section, he mentioned that there is no database for the fibers used to make the Cordilleran attires. Thus, the existence of one would significantly benefit the regional forensic group of the Cordillera Administrative Region.
We wanted to do this research not only for our own benefit, but also to help the forensic science community by giving information and data about Cordilleran fabrics. For us researchers, we don't just see this as an activity we should do for compliance, but we are taking this opportunity to be our stepping stone to be part of the growing community of forensic scientists and to show them the knowledge that our instructors have given us. Thank you.
Next is the statement of the problem. So here we will tackle the issue that our study is aiming to address, which is knowing about the optical properties of fibers used in Cordilleran attires. And so the main purpose of trying to study these fibers is to aid in criminal investigations that use pieces of evidence from a Cordilleran attire or clothing as proof. It's also because, according to Police Lieutenant Colonel Biadang, police forces consider trace evidence as an important part of their work, but most of them tend to focus on tangible and easily observable evidence. So we hope that in providing a database for the optical properties of these fibers, it will help make their job easier in comparing unknown fibers from a crime scene that involves Cordilleran attires to the ones we already studied. So in identifying fibers, we can utilize quite a few techniques to differentiate the identifying characteristics of one fiber to the other. You can measure their solubility, you can burn and check their residue, you can melt them, and the least destructive and what our group will use to conduct this study is observing their optical properties. This technique is reliable because, as we all know, different fibers have different molecular structures, and those molecular structures react differently to light. And what we will observe when we expose those fibers to light under the polarized light microscope are the optical properties that will be distinct from one fiber to the other. So the first optical property will be discussed by Jensel.
First element is the transparency of fibers. Transparency is the physical property that allows light to pass through the material. Second is the color. It is the aspect of the fiber that is caused by the light qualities being reflected or emitted by the fiber. The fiber color allows researchers to determine whether the fibers have its natural hue or if it has undergone dyeing processes. Another element is the pleochroism. It is an optical phenomenon in which the fiber has different colors when observed at different light angles. To observe this phenomenon, the specimen will be simply rotated around the microscope optical axis.
For relief parallel and relief perpendicular, the term relief refers to the contrast between the fiber and the mounting medium, which can be oil, epoxy, or even nail polish. So this is observable because when we immerse the fiber in liquid that has a different refractive index from the fiber, refraction occurs and some light rays bend towards the medium with a higher refractive index. And this can be observed by noting if the halo or the backline around the sample goes inward or outward the sample when you lower the stage of the polarized light microscope.
For the paradigm of our study, we would be utilizing the input process output since our research design is not experimental. Rather, we would like to explore on the optical properties of the different fibers used in manufacturing Cordilleran attires. We would be utilizing the different fibers used in manufacturing Cordilleran attires as our input in this study. These fibers will be subjected under the polarized light microscope, wherein their individual optical properties will be observed and recorded. For the output of this study, the observed and recorded individual optical properties of the different fibers used in manufacturing Cordilleran attires will then be transformed into a database.
For the methodology wherein the research design, the goal of the study is to investigate the optical characteristics of Cordilleran fibers. The lack of information regarding the composition and the optical characteristics of Cordilleran fibers led the researchers to choose exploratory and descriptive design. Exploratory research is used to study issues that have never been studied previously, such as the Cordilleran fibers, where it is important to fully comprehend the nature of the optical properties of Cordilleran fibers. The objective of a descriptive design, on the other hand, is to precisely and methodically describe a population or a phenomenon. Additionally, it can be qualitative, such as observation, where it enables us to determine the type of Cordilleran fibers being observed. For the locale of the study, the research will be conducted in Baguio City Cordillera Administrative Region. It is because some of the main producers of Cordilleran clothing, such as Easter weaving and Nardas, are locally accessible in Baguio City.
Material. This study uses polarized light microscope and the accompanying technique to analyze the fiber's optical properties. Fiber samples are collected from the fibers used in Cordilleran Attires, which was gathered mainly around Baguio City, for they already have a compilation of Cordilleran attire displayed in museum and which are manually weaved and produced within Baguio, like Narda weaving and Easter weaving. We use PLM as our material for the reason that it is available to us, the researchers, and also we had experience using the PLM in examining fibers. We choose PLM also because our research is qualitative and mostly PLM is used for quantitative and qualitative studies due to their high degree of sensitivity. PLM is also the most suited equipment in finding results on our statement of the problem, which are the properties of fiber used in Cordilleran attires in terms of transparency, color, pleochroism, relief perpendicular, and relief parallel. We also use materials such as tweezer for extracting fibers from the representative sample fabrics, nail polish as the mounting medium for the fibers, and lastly, glass slide where the fibers are to be mounted. Method. Initially, the researcher equipped themselves with PPE while collecting samples. The next thing they did was individually pack the sample in a Ziploc and label them accordingly. Next thing the researchers did was sample preparation. The first step of sample preparation is to extract a sample fiber from the gathered fabric using tweezers. The researcher then placed the strand of fiber on a clean glass slide, after which they apply 1 to 2 drops of clear nail polish straight on the fiber. They then place a cover slip on top of the sample. And lastly, they let the slide air dry. After sample preparation, it is now ready for examination. Each sample should be mounted on the stage of polarizing light microscope for examination and determination of their optical properties. After that, all observation of each sample was recorded and noted.
For the treatment of data based on the research of Prinsco et al., the use of typical forensic analysis methods are to be used in data collection. The data acquired from the observations will then be tabulated.